Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. For today's video we're going to be looking at a brand that I actually haven't really seen a lot of people talking about. Like, it's been mentioned here or there in like new makeup releases, but beyond that, not a lot. So I thought that I would actually get a couple of the palettes from this particular company. As you see in the title, it's Kara Beauty. I don't know why I'm talking like it's a surprise, but I thought that one of the palettes in particular really looked kind of intriguing to me, and that was the Dreamscape palette. Very cool kind of iridescent, almost holographic shift to the packaging. And then the inside, this is what the palette looks like, and I just think that's such an interesting thing. Like, especially some of these shades, they have like little lines coming down, and so I thought that was really unique and kind of intriguing to me, and so I thought that I would test it out. I did get another palette from Kara Beauty, and that was the Galaxy palette. It's kind of a metallic-y, rough type material on the outside, and then it is just nothing but glitters in here, just till your heart is content. But for today we're going to be focusing on the Dreamscape palette, and if you guys haven't checked out Kara Beauty yet, I would say that the vibe that I get when I look at the website is like a cross between BH Cosmetics and Morphe, because they have some of the like gigantic palettes that Morphe has, which I feel like who really wants those at this point? Like, I'm not really compelled to buy palettes that have like 40 some shades in there. It's just a little bit too much for me, and I usually feel like when they're that big you're sacrificing a little bit on quality at that point. But the smaller ones definitely give off more of a BH Cosmetics vibe. They look a lot like some of the things that I've seen from BH Cosmetics, and so just aesthetically they kind of come across like they're a bit of both, which, hey, you know, more power to you. But that is part of why this one really stood out to me, was because it is completely unique. I don't really think I've ever seen a palette from another company that looks quite like this, and especially with this, I don't know why I'm blinding you guys, sorry. But with that color story and everything, I think it's just very unique, and I really liked it. It gave me some fun summer vibes, like I'm gonna be drinking lemonade, I don't know, outside somewhere. Great reference, Kat, what are you doing? Okay, but we're just gonna go ahead and jump right in. And so I'm going to be swatching this palette first, and then once we are done swatching it, then I will do a look for you guys. And the names of the shades are on the back of the packaging, and we all know I am super duper stellar at calling out the names of the things that I'm using as I'm applying them to my eyes, so sorry. All right, here we go. So the first shade is a metallic-y white shade, Light Pearls. And that looks like this. Pretty sheer, but a little bit of coverage on there, which isn't bad. The next one is gonna be Aurora. Just a light, kind of dusty rose peachy type shade. Then next is another metallic. This is Dazzling Lights. Also decently sheer. So it looks like so far the metallics are pretty much meant to be used as toppers from what I'm gathering. And the next shade, Rosy Pink. Okay, that is a pigmented lady right there. Next we have Dreamy Eyes. It's a bit of a neutral tannish shade. Then Emeralds in Water, and this is a shade that I'm really excited for. I'm definitely going to be using this today. It's kind of a lime greenish type shade, and I don't see too many yellows that are kind of lime greeny in nature, so I really liked that one. And then right next to that we have a very green shade, which is Orchid. Look at that, that is very green. Next we have another metallic, and this is Moonlights. It's got a little bit of a yellow tint to it. And then the last shade on the top is a very dark green called Drift Away. There you go. So that is the top half of the palette. Moving on to the bottom, the first one is going to be kind of a light blue shade, and this is Crystal Clear. Kind of a nice sky blue. Then we have the first of the striped metallic shades, and this is Enchanted. Also a pretty light blue, very sheer. So all of their metallics so far have come across extremely sheer. Next is another matte, and this is Reflection. That is a very nice, vibrant, kind of turquoisey blue shade. Then next up we have the next of the two lined shades. And this is the shade Joy. Oh wow, okay. Very interesting. So it was kind of blue in the pan and then had brown lines, and it's interesting that the brown really kind of took over on that shade. But next up we have another matte shade, and this is Go With The Flow. So a little bit of a darker pink, but still very, very light. Almost, I would say, like a cross between pink and lilac, just looking at it. And then next up, we have another darker matte. And this is Magical Moves. Okay. It's a bit of a darker bluish green. Next up, we have another purplish shade. And this is Wishes. That's definitely a lilac purple on there. And this is our last metallic shade, which is Eccentric. Okay. It's got a bit of a pinkish purple shift. And then the last shade, kind of a darker purple, called Voyager. And there you go. So this is all of the swatches together for the whole palette. So I think a good mix of like greens, blues, pinks, and purples. I am super duper excited to put a look together with this, and I think what I'm going to try and do is 2 different looks, just because I want to attempt to use as many of the shades as possible so you guys can really see what turned out well on the eyes and what did not. And so I think I'm going to do a yellowish green look on one and then a pinkish purple on the other, just so we can really kind of see all of them. To start things off, I was applying emeralds in water into my inner corner and then just pulling that out to kind of cover the rest of the eye as well. Then I blended into the center of the eye the shade Orchid, or finally using Drift Away on the outer edge. And then because I found that these shades were not super duper pigmented right off the bat, I grabbed a more packing brush and then reapplied each of the 3 shades. So far I can definitely say that they are fairly sheer in comparison to some other palettes that I have. This is not huge color payoff, like you definitely have to build them up to a certain extent, but they do blend pretty nicely. And this is obviously just me starting off with the matte shades, so we're gonna go into the shimmers next and see kind of how they do. First metallic topper shade that I used was Moonlights. Okay, well, I really like the shimmers. That is lovely. After the yellow shimmer, I applied to the center of my lid a combination of Moonlights and Orchid to create a green shimmer. The one shimmer that this palette is kind of missing is a good green shimmer. It's got like everything else, literally. And so what I ended up doing was taking the yellow shimmer and mixing that with kind of the matte green that I put on the center of the lid, and that seems to have done pretty well. And there's also not a ton of fallout from what I'm seeing, just a little bit with the glitter, but that's kind of it. To finish up the eye look, I smoked out the lower lash line using the shade Orchid and blended that into the outer corner, which was Drift Away. Okay. So this is the first half. I think it looks pretty good. They are definitely buildable shades, and I think that those shimmers definitely do a really nice job of bringing out the color of the mattes. And so even though the mattes were not super duper pigmented right off the bat, I think that the glitters do a really, not glitters, the shimmers do a really nice job of just really kind of emphasizing those shades. And so I think that ended up making it look much better than what I was initially expecting just on the first couple bits of pigment that I was adding. So let's go ahead and move into the pinkish purple look, and then I will clean up my whole face so we can see what it looks like with mascara and a full face of makeup and everything, and then I will give my final thoughts. But yeah, let's jump into these pinks and purples.
Similar to the first eye look, I went with the lightest matte shade, in this case Go With The Flow, and applied that to the inner corner and then just pulled it out to the rest of the lid.
So I think just right off the bat, the purple, like this is the lightest of the lilac shades, and I'm seeing definitely way more pigment than I saw with the yellow and greens.
For the center of the lid, I used the shade Wishes and then blended out the outer corner with the shade Voyager.
Yeah, these purples are definitely way more pigmented, just right off the bat.
To start with the shimmers, I used the shade Dazzling Lights on the inner corner. Then on the center of the eye, I used the shade Eccentric. And to finish off the eye look, I blended out my under eye with the shade Wishes.
Okay, I think I'm pretty much good to go. So now I just need to clean everything up, and then I'll kind of talk with you guys a little bit about what I thought of everything, because I definitely have some thoughts. Shocker, I know. But I'm gonna go ahead and throw my face on real quick off camera, and then we'll be back to discuss. Okay, so for the final reveal, I did throw my ring light back on so we can actually see what I'm doing, because as per usual, my timing is great on this kind of thing, and so the sun is going back down again. So my final thoughts on this palette. I think that the shimmers are really, really nice, very interesting. They are definitely, I think, just meant to accentuate the matte shades that you already are putting on. I think that the matte shades are not as pigmented as what I am used to, and so it did take some building. For instance, like I have similar eye looks that I've done with like my Lethal Cosmetics single eyeshadows and some of the other BH Cosmetics shadows that I've had that were just no effort at all, and I got tons and tons of pigment, whereas on this, I definitely feel like I had to work at it a lot. Just to build up the tone, and it wasn't until I added the shimmers that I really felt like I got a worthwhile pigment with it. But as far as like the color story goes, I really, really like it. I think that especially the shimmers that have the lines kind of going down on them, these two guys right here, are very unique, and so I really appreciated that. I think overall it's a decent palette. It's not too expensive either. I'll toss up the price for you guys so you can take a look at it. They are reasonably priced, much like BH Cosmetics and Morphe are reasonably priced. But I mean, yeah, I think overall I just wish that the mattes were a little bit more pigmented than what they are on initial application, especially the yellow and the greens that I was using, because the yellow like was almost non-existent at first, and so I was a little bit disappointed with that. But then once I added the shimmer on top, it did bring out a lot more of that yellowish gold tone. But other than that, I think it's a nice, decent palette. But if you're wanting super high pigment right off the bat, you're probably gonna be a little bit disappointed with this. But if you are someone that is a beginner that wants to try out using a lot brighter shades, but you're not wanting to just immediately go nuts with it, I think that this might be a really, really good palette for that, just because it is a little bit more subdued, but you still do clearly get a nice colorful look with it. And there are in fact enough very nice light neutrally shades along here that you can also get a nice neutral look if that's what you're looking for as well. And so I think the versatility in the palette is definitely there, and I think that it is user friendly because also the metallics aren't so in your face that you have to be worried about like just instant strobing all over your eyeballs. They are just toppers that accentuate the shades. For beginners, faux show. If you're someone that wants more color, maybe, maybe not. I'll leave that up to you guys to decide. But those are my initial thoughts on it. I have not tested out the glitters only because I have to go to work in the morning, and so I don't want my whole entire face to be Sparkle City. So, but I will be testing these out at some point in the near future because, I mean, how can you not want to just test out all of this glittery madness? It looks so good. So yeah, I'm gonna be testing those out later. But that's my initial thoughts on Kara Beauty. Let me know if you guys have tested out any of their products. If there's ones that maybe I'm missing out on that I should definitely grab, let me know. If you liked this, give me a thumbs up. This was kind of just a rapid review. But hey, as I said before, if you made it to the end of this video and you have not subscribed yet, you should do so, because clearly you are just fixated and fascinated with all that comes out of this mouth. So feel free to hit that subscribe button if you would like. But this was my video, and other than that, you guys just go have a good one.